when they wouldn't be on Yes, they would be on My 9 or Pix 11. I wish it was still that, where every game was
Yeah.
on, where everything was on cable. It's just easier that way. You don't have to worry about, paying for multiple services.
Hope you guys are having a great Thursday alongside my co-host Ryan Touhey. I'm your other host, Ben Kruse. Happy Thursday, happy March Madness opening day to all who celebrate. I know it's obviously a really fun time of year. And Ryan, 7 days away, my friend, of having real life baseball. It feels like it's been a very, very long off season, but we're pretty much finally back and better than ever. So we can't wait for that. I'm feeling good. Ryan, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good too. It is actually officially the first day of spring here, and it is very nice to kick winter to the curb because I do not like winter at all, and I am much more of a spring and summer person. And like you mentioned, baseball is here. As a matter of fact, the regular season has technically already started, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in this episode. But I'm doing good, and I'm excited as our teams get closer to opening day and we get into the full swing of another long baseball season.
All right. Before we get started, make sure to follow us on Here for the Cycle on Empty the Bench Network, right down here on the ticker bar below. Also, make sure to follow us at Hitting for the Cycle at HFTC. Also, make sure to follow us at youtube.com/ETB Network. Listen to Hitting for the Cycle wherever you guys get your podcasts. And also, Hitting for the Cycle is presented by Playback. Playback, we want to really appreciate their time for right now because we are officially partnered with March Madness. We obviously have a lot of games starting today and, of course, for the remainder of the overall tournament. So we really want to appreciate Playback for all of their efforts for that. And also make sure to follow us as well too over at the Substack. We have an episode that we will be premiering today also about our predictions for the upcoming season, which will be, of course, the season next week. So we can't wait for that. Hope you guys get the chance to take a look at that stuff as well. All right. So in terms of our episode, Ryan, today we're going to go through a couple of things on the platform here. So obviously the Tokyo series recap between the Dodgers and the Cubs, like you mentioned earlier, that we did have some live baseball this week, technically speaking, because these two teams kicked off their season early. Obviously, the international series last year, they did it last year for 2 games, and this year they're doing it once again. So I know for many people, the games are really, really early. I don't know, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, it's just a matter in terms of like how much really we kind of watch. I was able to watch, kind of the end of some of these games, was obviously kind of the better part of them. Um, but the Dodgers, obviously, who could be potentially the defending champs, once again this year with all the talent in the world. And then you have the Cubs, who, of course, are a team that I think a lot of people are pretty high on this year. Of course, with some of the additions, including Kyle Tucker. So, Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitched in game one. And for the Cubs, it was Shota Imanaga. I think both of them pitched fairly well. And then in the second game, you had the debut of Roki Sasaki. He went 3 innings, 1 hit, 1 earned run, 5 walks. So I think that was a little bit of concern. But if you remember last year, Ryan, with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Yamamoto got absolutely rocked in his debut against the Padres. Everybody was going out crazy. Oh my God, this is crazy. And of course, Yamamoto is doing his thing. So it's going to take time for some guys, and I think that Sasaki is going to be great, just kind of like as Yamamoto is going to be. But you kind of got a pretty good glimpse in terms of how this Dodger team, their lineup is going to be, and they didn't even have Mookie Betts, who unfortunately was sick this week. So, and Freddie Freeman too. So take 2 of those guys out, and they had no problem scoring runs against a pretty good Cubs rotation that they have. Steele pitched in the second game as well for the Cubs. So, Ryan, I know we obviously talked there in terms of how much we really kind of both watched this overall series. But how do you feel about this as a whole?
Well, it really revolved around Otani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, Imanaga, Seiya Suzuki. I mean, all the Japanese players who were on these two teams. That's really what it was all about. It was a return home for all of these guys to be able to play in front of their home country fans again. It was a special moment for all these guys, I'm sure, and it was a special moment for all the great Japanese baseball fans. And the series, I kind of expected the Dodgers to win at least one of these games, but it didn't surprise me that they ended up taking both of these games. Like you mentioned, Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shota Imanaga was the pitching matchup in Game 1. Yamamoto pitched pretty well for the most part. He only threw 72 pitches and only won 5 innings. But it was opening day. Dave Roberts is not going to push him too far in the first regular season game of the year. There's a lot of baseball to be played, so he was very conservative. But Yamamoto, he only allowed 3 hits, did allow a run, but he only walked 1 and he struck out 4. So overall, pretty solid first game for Yamamoto. Imanaga, like you mentioned, pitched for the Cubs. He only went 4 innings and only threw 69 pitches. He did walk 4, so his control wasn't terrific, and he only struck out 2. The Cubs won Game 1 by the score of 4-1. Shohei Ohtani hit a double. I believe it was in an RBI. No, he didn't get any RBIs, but he hit a double. And Michael Conforto also hit a double for the Dodgers as well. Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith, and Tommy Edman got the runs for the Dodgers. They drove in the runs for them. The Cubs got their run off the bat of Amaya, their catcher. It looks like it was an RBI double. And that's how the Cubs got their run. So that was Game 1. And then in Game 2, like you mentioned, it was the debut of Roki Sasaki. And like you mentioned, he was erratic, but you could tell he also had some jitters. He was definitely a little nervous making his debut in front of his hometown crowd too. I'm sure. I'm sure that definitely played a role. He didn't want to disappoint his fans. And, he ran into and out of trouble a couple of times, and, he did walk a bit more than he normally would. But, he buckled down, and, the Dodgers helped pick him up. And the Dodgers won Game 2 by a score of 6-3. And wouldn't you know it, Shohei Ohtani, of course, as I expected, went deep. Yep. It was kind of an odd home run. It barely got out of the stadium, and actually was touched by a fan in the dead center field. So there was a little confusion as to whether or not initially people thought it was a double, but after replay review, they determined that it was in fact a home run. So Ohtani, no surprise to me there that he came through in Japan. The guy lives for big moments. He lives for the spotlight. And Ohtani's going to have another monstrous year, if you ask me. I expect him to easily finish at least in the top 3 again in MVP voting this year. And, the fact that he's going to be taking the mound again this year, there are going to be a lot of eyes on Ohtani, and there are going to be a lot of eyes on the Dodgers in general as they look to become the first team to repeat as World Series champions since the Yankees from 1998 to 2000. It's been a long time coming, and, right now the Dodgers look like the best equipped team to accomplish this feat, something that hasn't happened in a quarter of a century, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, the Dodgers start out the season 2-0. You can expect a lot more wins from them. And even though the Cubs, dropped the first 2 games of this season, still very early. They're actually going to go back to they may have already come back by this point, but they're coming back to the United States to finish up the Cactus League spring training slate. And then the 2 of them will be back playing in their respective cities in LA and Chicago, and we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, like you mentioned, the Cubs looks like they're kind of an upstart team. It looks like they're on the rise. They are projected to kind of battle with the Brewers for the National League Central Division title this year. They're definitely a stronger team this year than they were last year with the additions of guys like Kyle Tucker. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to both of these teams, but obviously the Dodgers are the biggest name right now in Major League Baseball, and their popularity continues to just grow astronomically in Asia, specifically in countries like Japan and South Korea. They have very, very loyal fans there now. So the Dodger fan base only continues to grow, much to the chagrin of the rest of us Major League Baseball fans.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing really quick too is we talk about Otani, Yamamoto, Sasaki. This is not even including a couple of the guys they had in the relief market. Ryan, Tanner Scott pitched in the first game for the Dodgers. He got their save. And then Kirby Yates pitched a scoreless inning in the second game. Now, I didn't really obviously want to bring this up, Ryan, but I know we were kind of going through the recaps of both games, and I don't want to bring you back PTSD as a Yankee fan with the Dodgers Yankee World Series. But you can kind of see that the Dodgers scored a lot of their runs in the first game via the fifth inning. And if you remember, the last game that the Dodgers played, they scored a lot of their runs in the fifth inning.
Yeah, I don't really care about that, honestly. I don't care what inning it is. So if you score your runs, you score your runs. That's really what it boils down to. You have 9 innings to score some runs. So if it's coincidence, basically.
It was a coincidence, yeah. So I mean, obviously, it's kind of a little blown out of proportion. But I saw so many people on social media saying, "Oh, here we go." Of course, like of course, the first game that the Dodgers played in the regular season the following year after they won the World Series.
Can I just say one thing about the Dodgers and their fans? Look, congratulations, you guys won the World Series. You certainly were the better team, and you definitely earned that championship. But let's not forget here, it took you longer than it should have to win a World Series championship. Let's not act here like you've constantly been on this run of world championships. It took you till 2020 in a 60-game shortened season to win one championship, for the first one since '88. So it took you almost 30 years. It took you over 30 years to break that drought, and now you finally won a full season championship. So let's calm it down a little bit here, all right? I understand that you guys, are favorites to repeat, and you very well could. I wouldn't be surprised if you did. But let's just, all right, you guys haven't dominated all these years. You've choked plenty of times in the playoffs, all right? So, yeah, congratulations. You definitely earned it, but I just think it's a little ridiculous how overboard they tend to go. Like they're rubbing it in like, yeah, we've done it. And like, it took you longer than it should have. That's basically what I'm saying.
No, that's fair enough. And one more quick question when it comes to this overall series. You were mentioning about how the Cubs have to go back to playing spring training games. And I was thinking about this before coming on the air today, about this overall series. And I think that this series as a whole is a really good thing for MLB. But I think there's 2 things specifically that I think that if they want to get it even more marketable, in terms of market a little bit better, because I think that if you're not a baseball fan, I think that there's not many baseball fans that see this and say, "Oh, game 1 of the regular season is going to be in Tokyo and it's going to be at 6 in the morning." I don't think that unless you're a baseball fan, I don't think that there's many as a baseball non-audience. I don't think a lot of people are seeing that. So I think that there's one thing that I was thinking about today is, as much as we're both baseball fans, Ryan, I think that the way that they market this is absolutely poor. And number 2 is I think that they should be doing this recap. I'm sorry, this overall series. We're doing the recap right now. The series the week of opening day. I just think that it's really weird, right? Where they play these 2 games, at least for these 2 teams, and then have to go back to spring training and then go to play opening day type of games. I think personally, you look at, I know next week, I think Monday, Tuesday, a lot of teams are going to start to kind of leave their spring training site and go to start playing exhibition games. I know the Orioles and Nationals, they're playing at Nationals Park starting on Monday. You obviously have the Guardians and the D-backs playing exhibition games at where the Diamondbacks play. So I think that it makes a lot more sense to play those games where you start to have some teams go play at their respective parks in America, at least at their own parks, than to play these 2 games in the international and then going back to their spring training site. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I just think that it's just kind of the way that they have it timed up. I know it's only for 2 teams, but I think that it's just the way they kind of have the format, I think, is a little bit odd.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but I also understand why they had these games when they played them, because Japan is so far ahead in terms of the time zone. For us, they're 12 hours ahead. For us, they're 16 hours ahead of Los Angeles. So it's going to take a while for these guys to get acclimated to the time zone and all that stuff. These guys are practically, I think, sleepwalking as soon as they get off the plane once they land in Japan. And vice versa when they get back from Japan. It takes a couple of days to recuperate and get used to the time zone again where you're at. So they wanted to give these guys, I'm sure they wanted to give these guys a couple of days to acclimate themselves back to where they came from. They didn't want these guys to be too drained. If they had them play in Japan, the same week as opening day for everybody else, I think it definitely would have affected their on-field performances. I think they definitely would have been more tired than everybody else. So I think they were trying to avoid that as best as possible. But I get where you're coming from, but I think that's why they did that's why it was scheduled that way.
Yeah, no, or at least if we're going to do it the week before, I mean, maybe like even today, like at least kind of like the week before, like kind of that weekend type. I mean, it's just kind of a little critique nitpick about it. Outside of that, I like it. I like kind of the two teams kind of having a little pre-opening day type. I know what that NFL and NHL, a lot of leagues specifically are trying to market their overall league into playing, outside of their own respective country. And I think that's a really good thing, especially for a worldwide sport like baseball to do it like that. So I do really like it. I think personally, just the overall timing of this overall event could be a little bit better and they can market it a little bit better. But maybe that's just me as a whole. All right, so we're going to get into the next story here on the show, and that's Jackie Robinson DEI story. Ryan, I know we kind of talked off air about this, but if you kind of want to share to the audience kind of more about this.
Yes, so I'll quickly recap this story. So I'm reading this off of ESPN. This is by Jeff Passan. So according to Passan, the Department of Defense had to restore a story on its website, which highlighted Jackie Robinson's military service. That took place on Wednesday. Apparently, this page of Jackie Robinson was deleted as part of Donald Trump's efforts to purge references to diversity, equity, and inclusion through digital content refresh. So this is verbatim. This is coming from Jeff Passan of ESPN. This is not my words. It did not make any references to DEI. The story of Robinson was scrubbed basically in recent days. They don't know if this was deliberate or accidental. Personally, I think this was accidental because Robinson is just one of the biggest names you could imagine in both sports and in life. And I think it would just be absurd if you were to toss his story to the side. I feel like he's just too big to, if you're looking through the names of people that you think are not, too notable or whatnot, you see Jackie Robinson, your eyes are going to light up. So I don't think this was deliberate. But regardless, it's kind of a weird story in a way. And Hassan goes to talk about Robinson's military service. He was drafted into the military in 1942 and joined the 761st Tank Battalion, and they were known as the Black Panthers, and he was court-martialed in July of 1944, right as the war was reaching its final year, the World War II, that is, and he refused to, an order by a driver to move to the back of an army bus that he boarded. So, yeah, on February 20th, Trump announced plans to build statues of Jackie Robinson and Muhammad Ali and Kobe Bryant in the National Garden of American Heroes. So, I don't think this is, personally for me, I don't think this is too big of a story necessarily. I'm glad that they were able to restore it because Jackie Robinson's story is one that needs to be told to everybody because he was such a prominent American figure and he helped transform the life and sports in America. So, I'm glad that they were able to resolve this because if they didn't, then I feel that you're not giving America's story to the fullest to the American public or to the public in general. So, that's basically what it was. They basically deleted to put this in simple terms, they deleted a web page that was dedicated to Jackie Robinson's military services, and they had to restore that. And they found the URL, and they were able to do that. So, glad that was taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we get kind of more details about this overall as a whole. But that was kind of a quick glimpse in terms of the story as is. Like you mentioned, Jackie Robinson, when you look at baseball, he was one of the first African-American guys to ever come in to play this sport, and his name as a whole as someone that we're going to see for a long period of time. So hopefully, just everything kind of comes, everything kind of figures it out, and we can kind of move on specifically with this overall thing. But but yeah, we wanted to kind of obviously mention that for you guys um, on the program here. All right, so the next thing we're going to get into is the MLB expanding their streaming services. Ryan, I don't know, do you have MLB TV or no?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so MLB TV I do have because obviously, one, I love baseball, and I know obviously I don't get the chance to. I used to have MLB Extra Innings on my TV, but I got rid of it because we don't have DirecTV anymore. So now I have MLB TV. It's about, oh man, I'm paying about 30, I think, a month right now for it. You can either get the annual package, you can either get the yearly package. So I have the monthly package. That's about 29.99, I think, right now. They always kind of throughout the season they kind of change up the price a little bit. Just kind of just depends in terms of how they're kind of streaming it. But when you go specifically on any type of game that you want to go on, right? They typically have the home feed and they have the away feed. On the MLB TV, which I like a lot because obviously spring training, I'm watching a lot of games on there, and I like to listen to different broadcasters as well too. I mean, if the Yankees are playing the Red Sox, obviously, for instance, right? Um, I can't watch specifically a home feed of the Red Sox when they're playing each other because I literally live right in the New York metropolitan area. So, but if I was over in Boston, right, I was living in Boston, I'd probably be able to, get the Yankees feed specifically because it's out of market. So a lot of these type of markets right now are trying to get services. And Major League Baseball, this was from yesterday from an article on MLB.com. Major League Baseball and NBC Sports regional networks. So NBC, right? NBC, I don't even know the last time. I mean, NBC had physical baseball being played, but MLB, at least the NBC regional sites, are going to start having a lot of these teams, including three teams with the Athletics, which is NBC Sports California, the San Francisco Giants, which is NBC Sports Bay Area, and the Phillies, which is NBC Sports Philadelphia, throughout MLB.TV 2025 season. So that's obviously why I mentioned MLB TV to you, because you're going to get the chance now, at least for me and for other people that have the overall MLB.TV, to see other different regional, city streamings, at least for the respective teams. So yeah, they announced this partnership today, which was from yesterday. So those three teams throughout the 2025 season, fans in the club's home territories can now watch the network's game coverage live and on demand with live pre and post game shows through the league streaming services. So yeah, that's another thing really quickly too, Ryan. I don't know if you get to know about with MLB TV is they typically have the service that's up after the game's done with the pre and post game shows. So I do kind of like that, in which like the Red Sox are playing the Blue Jays out in Essen. I sometimes will get home from work and put on my laptop around 6 so I can watch the pregame show. And they typically will kind of have that. And they also put on the postgame shows. They also kind of keep it, of course, with the interviews as well too for the coaches and for the players as well too. So I don't know if for Yes and stuff, if you really kind of watch the postgame shows a lot and obviously seeing this kind of that type of stuff. MLB.TV has that partnership where they could kind of keep the pre and post game shows also too, which is another reason why I like it. So with the completion of this agreement, 26 of the 30 MLB clubs now have a DTC streaming option available in market. So it also eliminates blackouts. Obviously, one biggest thing specifically when I first got on MLB.TV, which really pissed me off, was the blackouts for the Red Sox when I got MLB.TV. It says specifically that it was blocked out, yet I paid all this money specifically for it. So I had to call them a couple times, MLB specifically, and say, listen, I literally am, technically speaking, blacked out, even though I'm not partly around the Boston area because I want to watch the Red Sox, right? That's the big reason why I want to pay for it. So blackouts are obviously a massive problem, unfortunately, with some of these streaming services. but MLB.TV is doing a much better job of trying to eliminate the local blackout for their fan bases. Games are appearing on MLB's national partners. Platforms will not be live on that. So also the packages too for the A's and for the Giants as well too. I know I'm kind of blabbing on a little bit, but you could probably get the point at this point in time. So, Ron, I want to ask you this because I know you mentioned you don't have the overall streaming platforms from the B.TV. How do you feel about this overall type of thing here, where the MLB is expanding kind of their streaming services? I know, movies and sports are obviously just adding a bunch of stuff regardless. But do you think specifically this is obviously just good for the league?
Well, I think it definitely helps some fan bases grow a little bit, and they're able to watch their teams at their convenience when they're able to. I mean, beforehand, I think the thing is, life in general is just moving further away from cable. Eventually, I think it's just going to be non-existent, and everything's just going to be streaming services. And that is what it is. There's I personally have always been old school when it comes to this stuff. I prefer cable still over streaming, even though right now I have more streaming services. I have streaming for my television here, then I don't have cable for my TV. But I only have a few streaming services. I don't really go crazy with paying for all these different services because it's just too much damn money, and it's just too much to keep up with. So I think they're pros. Like with anything, there are pros and cons when it comes to stuff like this. I think it definitely gives people more of a chance, especially today's youth and generation, to keep up with their favorite teams. Now that MLB has expanded to 26 teams, but at the same time, there are some people who are not familiar with this stuff, and it's still going to be hard for them to keep up, even harder than it was before. But I think there's more positives with this than negatives on the fact that this is growing a little bit. MLB TV, it's not perfect by any means. Trust me, I know. And the blackouts are definitely a pain in the ass, and that really needs to be resolved. But I think this was something that needed to be done. So, I think this is a good step in the right direction. Hopefully they can smooth things out a little bit more. At the end of the day, I just want people to be able to, stay in touch with their favorite teams and, what they're doing and all that stuff. The simpler you make this, the better, if you ask me. So we'll see. But like I said, the days of cable are just coming to an end, basically. I mean, I know it's still out there, but yeah, streaming is. Even though streaming has just gained massive popularity over the past 5 to 10 years, I'm still kind of a newbie to it. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand it. It's just too much to comprehend, and too many. I got to pay for this. I got to pay for that. Some streaming services don't include this. It doesn't include that. So it's just ridiculous. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, of course, you got Netflix, you have
Netflix, Peacock, Amazon, Apple.
Yeah. Yeah, no, ESPN Plus. I mean, you name it now. So this is just kind of another added addition to the streaming stuff. But I will say one advantage right now to streaming is like, for me, if the Red Sox or your Yankees are playing an afternoon game throughout the day, right? Obviously, more likely than not, you're not going to be able to see it on a TV unless like your office or something might have like the TV on with the game on. So obviously, I don't know. Have you ever used the Yes app before? I mean, to watch any of these games, I've heard very interesting stuff about the Yes app, but I've never used it myself.
I personally have. I've downloaded it, but you need to create an account to watch the Yankee games, and I think the app costs like $15 a month or something like that. I'm just like, I already pay enough for so much stuff. Do I really need to pay $15? Not that $15 is an astronomical amount of money, but based on what I have expenses for, any nickel I can save is vital. And I want to be able to use my money for other ventures like traveling and stuff like that, and treating myself to going out more, to hang out with friends or whatnot. So that's how I prefer spending my money. So that's why I kind of have a limited amount of streaming services for me. And yep, I mean, you make sacrifices with what you want, what you're not with, and what you're able to afford. So I'm willing to sacrifice a certain amount of money for me personally, and I know that's the way of life for most Americans and for people in general. So I personally don't really know too much about the S app other than you can stream Yankee games. I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard sometimes it's
Yeah.
good. I've heard sometimes it's good. I've heard sometimes that it freezes, that it glitches, and you lose signal or connection or whatnot. But I feel like that would be the case with a lot of things.
Right.
So it's going to be a hit or a miss basically for you. It's going to vary. So I can't really give. Even if I said it's great, that wouldn't necessarily translate to somebody else. For somebody else, it might stink.
Yeah, really one more quick thing of this topic before we get to the next is just I know like at least maybe it's just me, but like the overall older generation in terms of the streaming services. Um, you're talking about Peacock, right? Baseball agreed. I think we talked about this on actually one of our shows, how Peacock and the MLB got an agreement to start, putting a lot of their games on Sundays at 11:30, right?
Yeah.
The older generation, I mean, I just want to watch specifically a game on TV, it's like, yeah, like they don't want to start making an account and paying all this money specifically to just watch their game specifically on this app called Peacock or, what was that other thing specifically
Roku.
too that Roku, yep. Even though I do kind of dig with that, and then Amazon Prime too. I mean, the Yankees playing Amazon Prime. If you're an older generation Yankee fan, it's
Yep.
like, do you want to go and spend all this Amazon Prime money to watch Yankee games? It's like I understand what the newer generation's trying to do specifically to upgrade a lot of their streaming services platforms, but I think it also lacks, unfortunately, with the older generation that is just trying to watch the game specifically by cable that now we're just kind of transiting over, like you mentioned, to stuff like this, which is it kind of disappoints, I think, a lot of the older generation, but it's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you gain some and you're going to lose some, and unfortunately, I think baseball is going to lose a lot of is going to lose maybe I don't know about a lot, but it's going to lose some fans I feel who are just incapable or don't want to pay or figure out how to work a streaming service. I mean, I miss the old. I mean, even for someone like me, I mean, I still miss the old days where the Yankees would play the majority of their games on the S Network, which they still do. The majority is on the S Network and on cable. But when they wouldn't be on Yes, they would be on My Nine or Pix 11. I wish it was still that where every game was
Yeah.
on, where everything was on cable. It's just easier that way. You don't have to worry about paying for multiple services. But the Yankees started doing this in 2022, and it pissed off a lot of the fan base, especially since people like to go out with friends on weekends, and they like to go to a restaurant or a bar. They like to look at the Yankee game on the television, and when it's on Amazon
Yep.
Prime, these places are not going to be able to air the games. So it kind of takes
Yeah,
away.
they're like too. Yep.
Yes, so it's but this is the direction Major League Baseball decided to go in. They're trying to appeal to a younger generation of sports fans. I mean, younger fans nowadays, I feel, have just kind of been drawn to the NFL and the NBA a lot more than Major League Baseball recently. And Major League Baseball is trying to win some of those fans. And I think they have a little bit. I think they've gained a little bit of momentum in recent years. But still, while it's nice that you're gaining some new fans, you're also going to lose some diehard fans who paid their hard-earned money for years to watch games on television and live. So you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, and that's the case with this.
Yeah. We could obviously keep going on and on, but we're going to get into our next topic here, and that's going to be our last topic for the show. Ryan, if you want to kind of, obviously kind of tell our audience kind of more about this story, a very, very unfortunate story. Former White Sox pitcher, if you guys probably remember him, Bobby Jenks, the closer who closed which year's World Series, Ryan, was it against the Astros?
2005.
2005. Thank you. I knew it was one of the earlier 2000 type of teams the White Sox had. So unfortunately, Bobby Jenks currently right now is not doing well health wise, and we send our prayers obviously to obviously the family. He's going through stage 4 adenocarcinoma. Also, he's of course battling, unfortunately, with stomach cancer. His family is trying to raise money and stuff like that. So very, very unfortunate story. And on top of that, to make even matters worse, is he also lost his home to the California wildfires, which unfortunately transpired last month at this point in time. So I really just want to, before Ryan, you get to this overall story, I just want to obviously send my prayers out to the Jenks and everybody specifically that's really affected in the baseball community. This is obviously something that nobody wants to go through. And, he's obviously trying to sign some autographs and, kind of doing some things specifically. But, man, he's going through a lot right now. And everything specifically as of right now just comes down to his health and, the loss of his house right now, which is just, bigger things in life, obviously that he's focused on. And we obviously want to send our prayers over to him.
Yeah, it's a sad story. It's really really sad. Like you mentioned, he lost his house in the wildfires, and he has stage 4 adenocarcinoma. However you pronounce it. But it's stomach cancer, and it's stage 4 stomach cancer, and unfortunately, he doesn't have much time left. So he's going to be doing an autograph signing, his last one. And his family is looking to raise money for his medical bills and to help with the financial burden that the fires have left on his family as well. So, yeah, it kind of just hits you hard when you hear a story like this, and it makes you kind of rethink your life in a way. Whenever I hear a story like this, I sometimes ask myself, what do I have to complain about? When you hear something like this, and this poor family, I feel so bad for them. My thoughts and prayers go out to his wife and his kids and all of his loved ones and his friends. And I hope that they're able to raise a good amount of money to help them out. And it's really sad. And Jenks was on the mound when the White Sox won the 2005 World Series over the Houston Astros in that 4-game sweep that ended a very long World Series drought for the White Sox organization. They had in their World Series drought. I think a lot of people forget this. Their World Series drought was even longer than your Red Sox World Series drought. The White Sox hadn't won the World Series since 1919 before the 05 World Series, or was it 19? Or actually, no, I think it may have been 1917. Actually, I think it was 1917.
Yeah,
1917. So it had been 88 years compared to the Red Sox 86.
86. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so it was it's a sad story. It really is. And Jenks is a very young man. He's only 44 years old, and the fact that he's going through something like this, it's just terrible. And Jenks should have at least some of the expenses covered by Major League Baseball's retirement plan for former players. It also includes a health care plan, and it includes a pension. So he'll have some stuff there, but the family's going to need a lot more. And he also told MajorLeagueBaseball.com from a hospital bed in Portugal last month that he did a lot of stuff in his 20s and early 30s. He said, the stuff I was doing in my 20s and early 30s, no normal person would have survived. So in one way, I'm grateful to be alive. And another way, I'm not surprised this happened. So Jenks, unfortunately, did not take good care of himself. And unfortunately, it came back to haunt him. And, he's unfortunately dealing with the consequences for not taking better care of himself, for taking better care of himself. I believe he had, I think he battled addiction, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's really sad. He just turned 44 years old last week. So like I said, he's a very young man, and the fact that he doesn't have much time left is sad. And I always hate sharing stories like this. It's never fun. And he was addicted to painkillers because he had a back injury during his career, and he went through a lot. The painkiller addiction really was just really bad for him, and it really just screwed him up. And he also admitted himself into alcohol rehab. He also went through divorce, depression. So he he's had a tough
Mm.
he's had a tough life. He's gone through a lot, and yeah, it's sad, and it's sad that he doesn't have much time left. But hopefully, this last autograph signing helps ease some of the pain, and hopefully he can. I mean, I know he's hurting physically, but hopefully he can at least. I just hope personally that he's able to enjoy however much time he has left to the fullest, and he's able to surround himself with loved ones and doing things that he loves to do. I think that would help out. And but yeah, I never want to hear anybody going through something like this, especially this young, and especially when you've gone through so much and you have other people who care about you. So thoughts and prayers go to Bobby Jenks and his family and his friends.
Yeah, it's just a really tough situation that he's going through. Especially like you mentioned, other stuff besides that, depression, um, and just nobody wants to go through this situation right now. So, we both obviously wish his family well through this really tough time. All right, so I felt like because we have still a little bit of time left here on the program, I just felt that we're going to preview a little bit of what's to come for next week, next Thursday, and that's the opening day matchup, because I feel like we probably won't be talking about every single matchup next week. So we're just going to kind of go dive into a little bit of that while we have a little bit of time here left on the program. So obviously for Yanks, Ryan, you guys are going to be opening up with the series against the Milwaukee Brewers. It'll be Freddie Peralta against Carlos Rodon in that matchup. My Boston Red Sox are going to be taking on the Texas Rangers. So my team's going to be going out on the road first. We're playing the Rangers and then the Baltimore Orioles. Two really good teams, I think. That'll be good this year. Garrett Crochet is going to be on the mound against my former pitcher, Nathan Eovaldi. So that's going to be a really, really fun matchup for me. I can't wait for that. But then you kind of look around the league, Ryan. You obviously have the AL East battle between the Orioles and the Blue Jays at 3:07. Ryan, it's kind of weird how typically opening day, right, will always have kind of that 1 o'clock slate of time. We got to wait, Ryan, until 3 o'clock. I mean, does that really kind of scream to you opening day? The fact is, like, the first game of the slate's going to be starting mid part of the day. Isn't it supposed to be called opening day?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an odd start time. I don't know why it's at 3 o'clock, but that's the start time that they decided to come up with. Maybe they wanted to give people a little more time to come to the ballpark from work because opening day is on a Thursday. So that could be a reason why. But yeah, I mean, typically opening day is played early at 1 o'clock, depending on where you are in the time zone. Actually, for other teams, they're not starting till the evening. I mean, the A's and the Mariners and the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. Well, I know the Cubs already played 2 games against the Dodgers, but the Diamondbacks, Athletics, and Mariners, their opening day games are at night, and they're not. I mean, they don't start till 7:10. And I mean that's on the West Coast. Obviously, here it's 10:10. So it's kind of, I don't know exactly how the times are decided or whatnot, but yeah, I mean the game opening day games are going to begin at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The first 2 games that are going to take place are the Yankees and the Brewers, and the Orioles and the Blue Jays. Those are the first 2 games that start. And then you guys follow suit along with the Phillies and the Nationals, Guardians, Royals, Mets and Astros, Giants, Reds, and most of the games are going to start at 4:10. Most of the game Eastern Standard Time. Most of the games are going to start at that time. So yeah, it's an interesting start time. But it is what it is. As long as the games get in. I know that starting a game on the in the Northeast in late March is always a gamble. The Yankees were fortunate enough that they opened up the season in warmer temperatures last year in Houston and Arizona. Not the case this year. They're opening at home and they're hosting Milwaukee and then the Diamondbacks, actually. Kind of interestingly, the Yankees start the season at home against the Brewers, and the Mets are opening out the season in Houston against the Astros. Basically the complete opposite of what it was last year. The Yankees opened up in Houston last year. The Mets opened up at home against Milwaukee last year. and now it's just the roles are reversed basically with the teams. So I found that to be a little interesting.
Right. If you're very curious, I'm looking at the New York weather for a quick early opening day forecast. Do you want to take a guess in terms of the highs going to be next Thursday in New York?
Yeah, 48 degrees.
Very close. It's reported for 46 and sunny. So, heck, it could be a lot worse.
Wear your jackets, folks.
Yeah, that's typical New York or Boston or Chicago, any of these cities specifically that are playing early opening day games. Thank you for the Red Sox for going out to Texas. So we're kind of flip flopping. You guys were in Texas for opening day last year. We're going to be down in Texas to play the other Texas team for opening day this year. So, but really quick, Ryan, is there any matchup specifically that kind of caught your eye before we conclude today's program?
Well, besides my matchup, obviously, the Orioles and the Blue Jays, I think, is an intriguing matchup because it's obviously a division battle between these two teams. The Orioles obviously don't want to be forgotten or not taken seriously, fall out of contention so soon. So they're looking to bounce back after kind of a disappointing season last year. Even though it made the playoffs, I thought it was kind of a disappointing season from an Orioles fan perspective. That is Zach Eflin going up against Jose Barrios. Make or break year for the Blue Jays. We'll see what happens with them. That's an interesting matchup. I think the Red Sox Rangers is another intriguing matchup. Garrett Crochet making his Red Sox debut against your former ace Nathan Eovaldi. Phillies Nationals, I think, is also a pretty interesting matchup. Another division matchup. Zach Wheeler against Mackenzie Gore. I think that's pretty interesting. Guardians Royals, I think, is also interesting. Another division matchup. Tanner Bybee against Cole Reagans. Reagans, I think, is a Cy Young. Is one of the favorites to win the Cy Young this year. I could see him finishing in the top three. I forget who I had winning these. I had Crochet. I picked Crochet. Yes. Yep. But I think Reagans is going to finish in the top three regardless, and Cy Young finishing this year. Mets Astros, I think, is also interesting. My favorite.
Clay Holmes.
Yeah, Clay freaking Holmes is going to be the starting rotation. Holmes, I think, has been perfect in spring training this year. I don't think he's had. I don't know if he's given up an earned run yet or not. I think he might have. I think he might have given up an earned
Watch it come on opening day in Houston, because it would probably bring the old Yankee back in him against the Astros. You never know. I obviously don't want
to because he took 5 years off my life last year. So I hope he gets smacked around. And I hope the Mets.
Surprise me.
I hope the Mets eat that contract. I really do. But I wouldn't be.
Speaking of Houston, Ryan, Joe Espada announced Jose Altuve is going to be starting in left field. It's already been a pretty big circus. Have you kind of seen some videos already of Altuve?
Pretty.
Yeah, I'm surprised that a guy, your former player and our former player, Alex Verdugo. Have you seen the story really quickly? By the way,
yeah, he is still
Verdugo.
He's not got an offer.
Crazy. And I know we kind of, rag on Verdugo. I know that he was kind of tough on you guys last year, but like he's not to an degree where it's outrageously bad either. There are some teams that kind of need a fill, like a team like Houston, right, where you could put Verdugo and definitely in left field for that team, or Oakland, or San Diego, or something like that. Like it's not that egregious where he's not like completely falling the face of the earth. He's just not an everyday. I don't think he's an everyday type of player anymore. But like you see what Altuve's doing, it's like man, oh man, like that's really what their plan was going to be. I don't know.
It's interesting. I still don't know why they moved Altuve to the outfield now that you don't have Bregman anymore. Like, is there really a need anymore? Like, Altuve is having a hard time getting under easy fly balls, and it's a big transition to go from the infield to the outfield. And Altuve just hasn't looked good, and I just don't think he has the body to be an outfielder. I think really, somebody of Altuve, I think he can really only play second base and maybe shortstop to an extent. But I don't know what people saw from Altuve that made him think that he wasn't a capable second baseman anymore. I'm not saying that he is the same player he was in his MVP season, but I still think he was a solid second baseman. I wouldn't have moved him to the outfield. I would have kept him at second base. I don't know. And I think that you make a good point. I know Verdugo, Verdugo's only 28. He's going to be 29. He's not even 30 years old yet. And I know he had a horrible season last year. It was the worst season of his career, hands down. And I think he'd be the first to tell you that. I don't know if teams want to spare themselves of a headache of a guy who doesn't hustle. I mean, that might be part of the reason why they haven't signed him. But I mean, Verdugo just didn't do himself any favors last year by just having a horrible year. I mean, he grounded out to second base way too much last year. He was rolling over pitches, and he just was not chugging it down. Even in the World Series, he wasn't hustling. So
yeah, that's bad.
He really, I think he just looked defeated mentally last year, and yeah, I think his reputation might just be spreading around the league, saying, "Don't bother, he's a headache." And I think that might be it more than anything. I could be wrong. I don't know. But at this point, if he isn't landing any jobs soon with a major league team, you may have to look abroad to Japan or Korea.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the other options that he potentially will have. So
what are the Cebu Sea Lions or whatever they're called out there?
Yeah, or the teams that I guess the Cubs and the Dodgers are playing the exhibition games. So we'll have to see. But we're out of time, folks. Thank you guys for watching Hidden for the Cycle, episode 63. Alongside my co-host Ryan Touhey, I'm Ben Kruse. We'll see you guys next week for episode 64.
See you.